This is Booked for Drama, where stories burn, hearts break, the tea is always hot and never a part 2. Today we're diving into My Family Went Crazy After They Extracted My Memories. Let's go. Chapter 1. To find their missing adopted daughter, my family forcibly extracted my memories. They were convinced that I had been bullying her for 3 years, which was why she left home. I smiled bitterly, my face pale, letting them extract my memories without resistance. Past scenes unfolded one by one, revealing that I was the one who had truly been bullied all along. My furious parents gradually tightened their grip on my hands, nearly fainting from shock. My usually composed brother's eyes turned red with rage, his jaw clenched in hatred. I looked up at them in confusion from their embrace and asked, "Who are you?" On the 5th day after Liliana Clark's disappearance, my family strapped me down in a private hospital laboratory. Cold metal restraints locked around my wrists, ankles, and neck, while a strange metallic cap covered my head. Several thick black cables connected the cap to a massive, humming machine. They were about to extract my memories. Panic and terror flooded through me as I struggled desperately, but it was useless. My father Isaac Clark, mother Harper Clark, and brother Ezra Clark stood before me with icy expressions, showing not an ounce of sympathy. Isaac said, "I'm asking you one last time. Where exactly did Liliana go?" He clutched a letter in his hand, his voice seething with anger, his eyes blazing with menace. 5 days had passed, and he'd completely run out of patience. Without waiting for my answer, he slammed the letter against my face. "Don't you dare tell me you don't know. Liliana's letter already hints that only you know where she went. You're behind her disappearance." Actually, I'd already read that letter. In it, Liliana wrote that she wasn't my parents' biological daughter and shouldn't continue monopolizing my father and brother. So after 3 years of fighting with me, she felt exhausted and decided to give up. She wanted to return everything to me, repeatedly emphasizing that I hadn't forced her to leave and hoping my family wouldn't make things difficult for me or pressure me about her whereabouts. Since she put it that way, everyone could see that Liliana's departure was connected to me. But I truly didn't know where she'd gone. The day Liliana left, I was still curled up shivering in the cold storage room. Ezra had punished me to sleep there because Liliana claimed the day before that I'd pushed her down the stairs. Of course, that was her false accusation. I hadn't even touched her. Yet she used that opportunity to deliberately leave, claiming she wouldn't fight with me anymore. Her behavior made it seem like everything was my fault, and Isaac, Harper, and Ezra could no longer contain their rage. I said, "I don't know where she went." I kept my head down, feeling the cold metal against my wrists and neck, and gave the same answer. I truly didn't know. For the past 5 days, I'd explained over and over again Liliana did this on purpose. But Isaac, Harper, and Ezra just wouldn't believe me. They only ever believed Liliana. Harper said, "Scarlett Clark, why do you hate Liliana so much? You've been back in this family for 3 Christmases now. How has she ever wronged you?" Her face was deathly pale. She'd been so worried about something happening to Liliana that she hadn't slept a wink or had any appetite for 5 straight days, losing a lot of weight. Then she continued, "Have you forgotten that on the day we came to bring you home, Liliana personally made you orange juice? She'd never set foot in a kitchen before, but just to make you a glass of her favorite orange juice, she cut her finger." Harper stepped closer, tears welling in her eyes as she looked at me. "Scarlett, please tell me where Liliana is, okay? I'm going out of my mind with worry." She cried so easily whenever it involved Liliana. I lifted my head slightly, about to say something, then stopped. In the end, I just gave a self-mocking smile. That orange juice was the beginning of my nightmare. But who would believe that? So I said nothing. Ezra suddenly stepped forward and slapped me across the face. He said, "Keep playing dumb, you bitch. This memory extractor was made just for you, enjoy it." Ezra had never liked me, so this slap was filled with pure hatred. The blow left my cheeks swollen and red, my head spinning, and blood trickling from my mouth. Isaac watched coldly, saying nothing. Harper scolded, "Ezra, why did you hit her? What if you injure her and it affects the memory extraction?" Ezra spat, "She deserved it. This bitch would be better off dead." His face darkened as he pointed at me. "Think about what she's done these past 3 years. The day she came home, she wet herself in the car like a wild animal. The moment she walked through the door, she made Liliana cry. Did she really think she could just waltz back in and play princess?" Ezra's anger intensified. "Remember when Mom had that fever? Liliana stayed up all night caring for her, barely getting any sleep, nearly collapsing from exhaustion. And her? She slept like a pig, showing zero filial devotion. Then he grabbed my bleeding mouth, snarling viciously, "You can't even handle something this simple without being pathetic. It says everything about your true nature. You're a selfish, unfilial wretch who isn't worth a single strand of Liliana's hair." My mouth throbbed with pain, but with his grip on it, I couldn't speak. I wanted to defend myself. But remembering how countless attempts at explanation over these 3 years had earned nothing but their distrust, I gave up. Yes, I'm an unfilial, selfish wretch, while Liliana is the devoted daughter you all cherish. Isaac said coldly, "Enough. Don't injure her. The memory extraction is what matters." Harper wiped the blood from my face and sighed softly. "Scarlett, don't blame Ezra for hating you. You really have done wrong." "Yes, I've done wrong." I laughed bitterly at myself again. Strangely, Ezra's slap had somehow scattered the fear that machine had instilled in me. Pain can break your heart, but it can also numb you. So come on, memory extractor, go ahead and torture me. I closed my eyes and remained perfectly still. Chapter 2. Ezra snorted coldly. "You're not struggling anymore? Smart." He was about to proceed when Isaac stopped him. Isaac had reached the limits of his patience, but still gave me one last chance. "Scarlett, this device is Ezra's company's latest product, highly unstable and likely to damage your brain. So I'm asking you one final time, will you tell us where Liliana went? Just tell us, and I'll give you $10 million, then send you back to the countryside. From then on, we'll have no relationship whatsoever." Hearing his words, I opened my eyes, filled with instinctive fear and trembling. I shook my head almost immediately. "I don't want to go back." Ezra sneered. "Look at her. She came back to our family just for money. For money, she despises the adoptive parents who raised her. Now she won't even take $10 million, she just wants to play princess in our house. She's probably thinking about inheriting our family fortune later." How despicable. Both Isaac and Harper's faces darkened. I had always been greedy for money, picking up and hiding even pennies from the ground. They absolutely hated this trait of mine. Now, learning that I was unmoved by $10 million and insisted on staying in the city, they despised me even more. I explained in a trembling voice, "I won't go back to the countryside because..." Before I could finish, Isaac waved his hand. "Fine. I won't give you another chance. Jacob Garcia, come in." A man in a white lab coat, holding a peculiar pocket watch, walked in. He looked serious and respectfully greeted Isaac, Harper, and Ezra. Isaac coldly ordered, "Let's begin. Extract her memories directly. I need to know immediately where my daughter went." "Yes, sir." Jacob walked to the device without hesitation, pressed 3 buttons, then took out 3 metal helmets and handed them to Isaac, Harper, and Ezra. Jacob explained, "Mr. Isaac Clarke, the 3 of you sit down together, put on the helmets, and you'll be able to watch the subject's memories through the built-in viewing screens. Based on our analysis of the subject's brain capacity, we estimate she can recall 3 times. More than 3 times would be extremely dangerous and would definitely damage her brain, causing epilepsy, bleeding, memory loss, and other symptoms." Ezra eagerly put on his helmet and sat in the chair next to me. 3 times is enough. First, let her recall Liliana's disappearance. She definitely knows. Jacob hesitated. The subject's emotional state is unstable. I suggest we slowly guide her through hypnosis to recall Ms. Liliana Clarke's disappearance. We can't be too hasty. Ezra sighed unhappily upon hearing this. Isaac and Harper nodded, letting Jacob arrange everything. After a while, all 3 of them had put on their helmets and were ready. Jacob turned off the harshest lights, then stood in front of my device. I looked at him numbly, motionless. Then Jacob pressed a button on my helmet. I immediately heard soothing, peaceful music, and something seemed to be injected into the back of my head. Jacob said, "Ms. Clarke, please don't resist. The more you fight it, the more painful it will be. You might as well." "Okay." I was completely relaxed. Jacob paused, somewhat surprised. However, he quickly got into character, picking up the pocket watch and gently swaying it in front of me. He said, "Ms. Clarke, sleep. In your dreams, you'll remember your first meeting with Ms. Liliana Clarke. Those were your beautiful times together." Jacob's voice was deep and hypnotically compelling. I slowly closed my eyes and quickly fell into slumber. A period of time seemed to unfold before me, and distant memories shone into my mind like rays of evening light. Chapter 3. I slowly opened my eyes and found myself sitting in a luxury sedan. This was Ezra's car, a Maybach S680. Ezra was driving himself, and in the car sat Isaac, Harper, me, and Liliana, whom I was meeting for the first time. We were happily heading home. I had dreamed of the scene from my first trip home. I turned my head to look at Liliana, who had her hair in a ponytail and a smile as bright as sunshine. She held my hand and said, "Scarlett, you're so tall. Are you 5 feet 4 inches? I'm only 5 feet 2 inches. I'm too short." She pouted, gently stroking the back of my hand, and continued, "Scarlett, you must have suffered a lot in the countryside. Your hands are all cracked. You'll never have to do farm work again." Isaac and Harper sat nearby, watching us with smiles. I felt somewhat awkward. My shabby appearance made me look like a beggar next to Liliana. But her warmth touched me, and I thanked her gratefully. Liliana waved her hand dismissively and suddenly pulled out a cup of orange juice from her backpack. She said, "Scarlett, our family has everything. I don't need to give you expensive gifts. Whatever you want, you can buy for yourself anyway. But this orange juice is different." Liliana said with a hint of pride, "I love drinking orange juice and often have the nanny make it. This time I made you a cup myself. I hope you'll like it." Isaac joked, "What a cheap gift." Liliana glared at him. "HMPH, what do you know? My gift may not be expensive, but it's full of heartfelt sentiment." Everyone in the car laughed, creating a joyful atmosphere. I blinked, thinking to myself, how nice. So this is how daughters can interact with their fathers. I took the orange juice and drank it all under Liliana's expectant gaze. I thought, it tastes really good. But before long, I suddenly needed to use the bathroom. And this urge was like a bursting dam that I couldn't control at all. My legs began to tremble, my lips turned pale, and cold sweat broke out on my back. I couldn't wet myself. This was my first meeting with Isaac, Harper, and Ezra. I absolutely could not urinate in Ezra's car. I wanted to get out, but we were on the highway. "Scarlett, what's wrong? Are you carsick?" Liliana noticed my distress and gripped my hand tightly. Isaac, Harper, and Ezra all looked at me. Ezra thoughtfully cracked the window open a bit. But the breeze made me need to urinate even more. I asked fearfully, "Can I get out of the car? This is the highway. We're still 6 miles from the service area. Why don't you rest on my shoulder?" Liliana directly pulled me to lean against her shoulder. Isaac, Harper, and Ezra also urged me not to be nervous, saying we were all family. I opened my mouth, clenched my legs tighter, and finally decided to tell the truth. "Dad, Mom, Ezra, maybe we should stop the car?" Before I could finish, Liliana suddenly shifted her position, and her palm accidentally pressed against my abdomen. Instantly, my whole body shuddered, and I couldn't help but urinate. My pants were soaked through, and the uncontrollable liquid flowed onto the seat and floor mat. A strange odor spread through the confined space. Liliana cried out and instinctively pulled back. "Scarlett, you!" Isaac and Harper looked over, their faces immediately changing with very subtle expressions. Ezra pulled the car over to the emergency lane, looked back in surprise, then stared at the wet stain. He was a germaphobe. His car was usually spotless, but now it was dirty and smelly. My face flushed red as I kept my head down, trembling uncontrollably. I was afraid of being scolded or beaten. I couldn't bear what was happening. The car continued forward, but the atmosphere had completely changed. Liliana remained lively, trying to find topics to lighten the mood. Isaac and Harper also comforted me, saying it was no big deal. Ezra hated that wet stain, but he didn't scold me, he just drove in sullen silence, no longer speaking. But soon, I heard his voice. "Why is she reliving this disgusting incident? Gross. My car was ruined by her piss." This voice was distant, not the voice from my dream. I understood. This was Ezra watching my memory and commenting. He was right beside me, disgusted by me. But I couldn't wake up, I could only listen to his revulsion. Isaac and Harper were disgusted too. Then Isaac cursed. "The first time we meet this bitch, she pisses herself. Is she retarded? Couldn't she use the bathroom before getting in the car?" Harper sighed. "She's definitely not normal. Even if she was desperate, couldn't she say something? She just suddenly pissed in the car. If word of this gets out, the Clark family will be a laughingstock." My heart ached, and I smiled bitterly. So they had despised me even then, they just hadn't said it out loud. The dream continued, and my memory remained vivid and sharp. After we returned to the villa, the housekeeper went to clean the car's stains while I received a grand welcome. This welcome had been prepared in advance, and everyone seemed thrilled to have me. After the ceremony ended, I moved into a bedroom on the 3rd floor. Liliana personally helped me make the bed, still comforting me about the incontinence incident. She said, "Scarlett, don't worry about it. None of us mind. Get some rest. Later, I'll take you shopping." I thought she was genuinely warm. Back then, I was still grateful to her, but I wasn't stupid. I vaguely suspected something was wrong with that orange juice. So I kindly reminded her, Liliana, did you add the wrong ingredient to the orange juice? I had incontinence right after drinking it. I never considered she'd done it on purpose, so I asked directly. Liliana froze for a moment, then turned to smile at me. You're that smart? I thought you wouldn't figure it out. But even if you did, it doesn't matter. I added a diuretic to the orange juice. I was stunned. What's a diuretic? Having lived in the countryside for 15 years, doing nothing but farm work and getting beaten, I had no idea about such things. Liliana couldn't help but laugh. It's something for stomach health. Since you're coming home to be a princess, I thought I'd help improve your digestion. You don't mind, do you? I didn't expect you'd piss in the car. Her smile was strange. Gone was her previous liveliness, replaced only by malice and smugness. I finally realized she was behind it all. But after years of abuse and beatings in the countryside, I'd become a coward. I opened my mouth, feeling only heartache, unable to say a single harsh word. Seeing my reaction, Liliana covered her mouth and giggled. Then she deliberately stumbled and ran out of the room, even starting to cry. Surprised and confused, I watched as Liliana threw herself into Ezra's arms. He'd just come upstairs. Ezra immediately asked what was wrong. Liliana shook her head, refusing to say. Ezra frowned, holding her tighter, demanding she tell him. It's my fault. I shouldn't have given Scarlett orange juice. She had incontinence because of the juice. She was angry and said some things to me. I'm the one who wronged her, Liliana explained through tears. Chapter 4. Ezra's expression instantly darkened. Isaac and Harper downstairs heard the commotion and came up to comfort Liliana. They stood outside my door looking at me, all silent, as if an unbridgeable chasm lay between us. I collapsed onto the bed, instinctively curling up. So my new home wasn't paradise after all. Demons lived here too. This distant memory brought tears to my eyes. I didn't want to remember anymore and forced my eyes open. Jacob stood in front of me, observing my condition while taking notes. Beside me, Isaac, Harper, and Ezra had all removed their helmets and were resting. But their expressions were strange. They looked at each other without saying a word. My tears were still flowing. Actually, I wasn't sad anymore. It was just that the distant memory had stimulated my tear ducts, making me cry uncontrollably. Ezra said helplessly, "Stop crying. I misunderstood you back then. Liliana was young and particularly mischievous. Don't take it to heart." Harper also comforted me, saying, "Yes, Scarlett, Liliana has been mischievous since she was little. I'll scold her next time." Isaac asked Jacob directly, "There are 2 more chances. You need to hurry up and make her remember where my daughter went." Jacob said confidently, "Mr. Isaac Clarke, don't worry. Ms. Clarke is very cooperative. We'll definitely succeed." Isaac, Harper, and Ezra stopped talking, rested for a while, then sat back down and put their helmets back on. Jacob wiped away my tears and hypnotized me again. He asked, "Ms. Clarke, you and Ms. Liliana Clarke are sisters. What's the most memorable thing about her?" The most memorable thing? My memory began to get confused, and the dreamscape became chaotic. I couldn't stabilize the dream immediately because in my memory, there were many memorable events. These events were very scattered, all appearing as fragments in my memory. Like at the school gate, when I caught Liliana smoking, she immediately grabbed me and scolded, "So what if I smoke? If you dare tell Mom and Dad, I'll kill you." I swore I wouldn't tell, but she smiled and lifted up my skirt, saying, "I believe you won't tell. But I still have to teach you a lesson because I'm wearing a skirt today too, and you shouldn't be wearing a skirt." As she spoke, she pressed the cigarette butt against my thigh. With a sizzle, my thigh smoked, and I screamed in pain. But Liliana laughed and said, "Your legs aren't bad." Like on a stormy day, Liliana said to me, "Hey, it's raining outside. My pajamas got blown out by the wind. Go pick them up." I wanted to take an umbrella, but she snatched it away and pushed me out the door. "You're just a stinking wild dog. Why would you need an umbrella? Just go out and get soaked." I was locked outside, completely drenched, while Liliana laughed loudly inside the house. Like how Liliana often told me to go back to the countryside, saying, "Bitch, I'll give you $100,000 if you go back to the countryside. I get annoyed just looking at you." She tried both threats and bribes, but I wouldn't agree. So she said angrily, "You don't want to leave, do you? Do you think you're really a princess? Let me tell you, I'm the only princess in this house. Get on your knees." She loved making me kneel down, probably because she was psychologically twisted. I refused to kneel. She didn't hit or scold me, just smiled and pulled out money, saying, "If you kneel down, this money is yours." I silently took the money and then knelt down. Liliana laughed loudly and said, "You really love money. Looks like I don't need any other methods to deal with you, I just need to give you money. But money is the one thing I'm never short of. Yes, as long as you gave me money, I was willing to do anything." "Enough." A voice came from outside my dreamscape. Ezra pulled off his helmet and cursed, "Jacob, what are you doing? How could these memories be real? She's slandering Liliana." Isaac and Harper couldn't take it anymore either, and pulled off their helmets directly. Jacob responded respectfully, "Theoretically speaking, memories cannot be fabricated." "Shit." Ezra kicked a stool, too angry to speak. Isaac looked at me, his face darkening. After a long while, he finally said, "It's Scarlett who's despicable. She wouldn't resist just for money. She encouraged Liliana's mischievous behavior." Harper also criticized me. "Yes, Liliana is still young and likes to play pranks, while Scarlett wouldn't resist just for money. Scarlett is also at fault." Listening to Harper's voice, my dream began to gradually stabilize and was no longer chaotic. I longed most for Harper's love, but she didn't seem to love me. Jacob glanced at the equipment and said urgently, "Mr. Isaac Clarke, Ms. Clarke's memories are still continuing. Do you want to keep watching?" Isaac, Harper, and Ezra looked at each other, then quickly sat down and put on their helmets. This time, I dreamed of Harper. Harper had a high fever and was lying in bed, delirious, moaning from time to time. Isaac was out of town, and Ezra was at the company. Apart from the nanny, only Liliana and I were home. Following the methods I'd learned in the village, I brought a basin of hot water, soaked a towel in it, and repeatedly wiped Harper's forehead, arms, and lower back. She was groggy and remained barely conscious after taking medicine. Liliana glanced over and said disdainfully, "Mom already took medicine. The doctor said it's nothing serious. Why are you so nervous?" I was very scared and said, "I'm cooling Mom down so her brain doesn't get damaged by the fever. In our village, there was a woman whose brain got damaged from high fever, and now she acts foolish every day." Liliana laughed loudly. "You're killing me. This is an international metropolis, not your broken village." I ignored her and continued caring for Harper. I was very anxious, constantly afraid Harper would become a fool, so I didn't eat or drink, watching over Harper every moment. I stayed up all night, and Harper had recurring fevers 3 times. By dawn, she finally broke the fever completely and fell into a deep sleep. I was exhausted to the extreme but finally felt relieved. After cleaning up the basin and towel, I went back to my bed to lie down. But as soon as it got light, Ezra dragged me up. He pulled me to the foot of the bed and slapped me directly. Ezra said furiously, "You still have the nerve to sleep? Mom had a high fever all night, where were you? You still have the face to say Mom didn't need care after taking medicine? Is she made of iron?" I was both hurt and confused, covering my face and stammering, "Mom," Ezra scolded, "Shut up. You bastard have no filial piety at all. You only get enthusiastic when given money." Liliana didn't sleep all night, taking care of Mom until dawn. "She almost fainted just now, while you slept so soundly." This was the first time Ezra hit me. Actually, he'd been displeased with me for a long time. And this time was just the trigger for his explosion. My tears flowed down because of the pain. I ran out wanting to explain, but saw Liliana supporting Harper, chatting and laughing as they walked past me. I looked at Harper, and she glanced at me with eyes full of coldness. For so long, this was the first time she looked at me with such eyes. The maternal love I'd longed for was completely shattered. Was it Scarlett taking care of me that night? A voice from outside shattered my dream. I slowly opened my eyes. Isaac, Harper, and Ezra had already removed their helmets and were looking at me in surprise. My consciousness was a bit blurry, unable to distinguish whether I was in reality or still in a dream. Harper hesitantly walked over and touched my face, her eyes reddening. "Scarlett, why didn't you tell me earlier?" "I misunderstood you. I didn't say a word. Those nightmares-like memories caused me too much pain, and I was becoming increasingly numb." After a long silence, Isaac sighed helplessly and said, "Scarlett never speaks up about anything. She completely indulged Liliana. As an older sister, she actually spoiled her younger sister like that. She bears great responsibility. Of course, I'll also punish Liliana. Once we find Liliana, I'll confine her for 3 days." Ezra frowned. "Dad, you don't need to punish Liliana. She didn't do anything wrong. Actually, I can understand her. She told me more than once that she was afraid of losing us, afraid of being replaced by Scarlett, so she acted irrationally. Yes, she was just being somewhat irrational. I closed my eyes again and showed a bitter smile. Why could I still smile? How strange. Probably because even at this point, they still loved Liliana. I had never been loved. How ridiculous. How could someone never be loved? Looking at my condition, Jacob reminded, Mr. Isaac Clarke, should we continue? Ms. Clarke's memories have been extracted twice. Although she's very cooperative, her condition seems a bit strange. I suggest we stop for now. Isaac said angrily, stop? My daughter's whereabouts are unknown, her life or death uncertain. She's never suffered hardship since childhood, and she's been missing for 5 days now. I must find her immediately. His manner frightened Jacob into not daring to say more, so he could only continue hypnotizing me. Chapter 5. This time, I finally dreamed about Liliana's disappearance. 3 days before she vanished, Isaac bought me a piano to practice on. He didn't love me, he just thought I was too unlike a rich man's daughter. I was like a beggar who had suddenly moved into a mansion, completely out of place. Whenever friends came to visit, Isaac would make me hide. He only let the talented and accomplished Liliana come out to meet guests. But this wasn't a long-term solution. There were rumors going around that the Clarke family's eldest daughter had been sent back to the countryside again, since no one had ever seen me. Under pressure, Isaac decided to transform me. Learning to play piano was just the first step. He bought the piano and hired it. A teacher, wanting to test whether I had any talent in this area. No one could have expected that I had real talent for piano. The teacher often praised me. Isaac was pleased and told me to practice more, he even smiled at me. This was the first time I'd received praise from my family, so I hid in the bathroom and cried for a long time. After that, I pulled myself together and focused on practicing. I decided I would definitely become a pianist, definitely fit into this family, and never go back to the countryside. I was terrified of that home in the countryside. But after just 2 days of practice, my fingers were cut by razor blades hidden in the piano key gaps. Almost every key had blades wedged in the cracks. I wasn't prepared for it. The moment I pressed down, my fingers bled profusely. I screamed in pain and saw Liliana rushing over, pretending to be concerned as she asked, Scarlett, what happened? Are your fingers broken? Without a doubt, this was her doing again. Shocked and furious, I said, Dad told me to play piano. Why are you always so cruel? Liliana smiled and said, yes, I am that cruel. I don't like you playing piano, and I don't like Dad praising you. What are you going to do about it? My fingers were all dripping blood. I gritted my teeth, ready to tell her. Liliana casually followed behind me, then suddenly leaned close to my ear and whispered with a sinister laugh, Bunny lady, go ahead and tattle. I trembled, and an overwhelming sense of terror spread through every cell in my body. All the colors before my eyes were instantly swallowed by darkness. I collapsed to the floor, shaking as I looked at her. How do you know about that? I investigated. You were called Bunny Lady in the village. How pathetic. I should explain to Mom and Dad what Bunny Lady means. With that, she haughtily headed downstairs. I cried in terror, please don't tell them. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Liliana, I won't play piano anymore. I'll listen to everything you say. Liliana smiled and said, that's more like it. Remember, you're just a stray dog. If you behave and obey, I'll naturally throw you a bone to chew. But if you dare dream of eating meat, I won't let you off. Satisfied, she stepped on my bleeding fingers. Since you've decided to be obedient, I'm going to pull my trump card. Tomorrow, I'm going to run away from home. As for you, you'll stay here and enjoy being treated as the only daughter. Then she grew more excited, saying expectantly, I really want to see how frantic the family will be when I disappear. My voice trembled with pain as I asked, why would you do this? Liliana lifted her chin. Why am I doing this? Of course it's to establish my position as the Clarke family's only princess. She paused, her voice turning ice cold. You've been back for 3 years, but Mom and Dad still can't bring themselves to kick you out. They may not be very smart, but they value blood relations. I'm feeling a bit threatened. Since Liliana knew my most unspeakable secret, she didn't care about exposing her own ambitions. She looked down at me. You're their biological daughter. As long as you're here, you're a threat to me. The Clarke family wealth is mine. I can't let you have it. If you want to blame someone, blame your parents and Ezra for being too foolish. They're so good to me, someone with no blood relation to them. Don't worry, when I inherit the Clarke family fortune, I won't treat you badly. I can give you $500 a month. That's much better than what you had in the village, right? Then she burst into laughter, laughing so hard that tears streamed down her face. I curled up in agony, the floor covered with my blood. Liliana ran downstairs, satisfied, deliberately tripping and pretending to tumble down the stairs before shouting, "Help!" Scarlett cut her hand. The incident became my fault. I had deliberately cut my fingers to avoid practicing piano. And Liliana, trying to stop me, had been pushed down the stairs by me. Isaac was furious. He kicked over the piano and never looked at me again. Harper was also disappointed, thinking I had psychological problems. Not only was I withdrawn, but I was also self-harming. Ezra even suggested sending me to a mental hospital. After all, someone with self-destructive tendencies might hurt his beloved Liliana. However, before I could be sent to the mental hospital, Liliana disappeared. She left a letter saying that my self-harm had deeply shocked her. Liliana even wrote in the letter, "Scarlett has been competing with me for 3 years. Now she's developed self-destructive tendencies. This is all my fault. I've taken everything that should have belonged to her. I'm leaving. I'm giving everything back to her." Her seemingly heartfelt words and the implications in the letter made me the target of everyone's accusations. I became the villain the whole family wanted to beat. My head was throbbing. The dream had ended, but the headache remained. Jacob gently shook my body. "Miss Clark, wake up." I weakly opened my eyes to find the lab completely silent. Ezra was smoking irritably. Isaac's face was stone cold with lifeless eyes, his hands clenched into tight fists. Harper kept crying, tears streaming down endlessly no matter how much she wiped them away. As I slowly regained consciousness, I understood why they were like this. They had seen my dream, witnessed the torture and bullying I endured, and saw just how malicious and vicious their precious daughter and dear sister truly was. So I laughed. I laughed bitterly and painfully. My entire head felt like it was splitting apart, as if 1,000 needles were piercing into my brain. After observing me for a moment, Jacob said worriedly, "Miss Clark's condition isn't good. She can't endure another memory extraction. Mr. Isaac Clark, did you get the answers you wanted?" He then looked toward Isaac. Isaac didn't respond. Ezra stood up and tossed his cigarette butt, startling Jacob, who quickly rushed over to pick it up. "Scarlett, if you've been suffering all these years, why didn't you tell us?" Ezra walked toward me step by step. His eyes still held a flicker of hope that the equipment had malfunctioned, that my memories were confused, that his beloved Liliana wasn't that cruel. "I told you many times, but you all chose to believe Liliana." After saying this, I closed my eyes again. I felt too much pain, too exhausted, with no strength left to speak. Ezra hesitantly stopped in his tracks, his face looking terrible as he turned to look at Isaac and Harper. Isaac remained silent. Harper suddenly burst into tears. "Scarlett, we were wrong. I really had no idea you suffered like this. I thought Liliana was just young and mischievous." This statement was quite telling, because it revealed that Harper had actually noticed Liliana bullying me all along. She just didn't take it seriously. Or rather, she allowed Liliana to use violence against me because she thought it was just playful roughhousing. She considered it all normal. I couldn't help but laugh again. People really do laugh when they reach the depths of despair. "Scarlett, we were wrong, but you were wrong too." Isaac stepped forward and said, "These past years, I wanted to send you go back to the countryside many times. I could have given you money, however much you wanted, but you were too greedy. It was your greed that destroyed you. You wanted too desperately to stay at the Clark Villa, too desperately to be a princess." Isaac refused to admit fault. "Liliana tormented you for years, up the wealth. Don't you deserve what happened to you? You never deserve it?" Hearing his words, I burst into loud laughter. Then I began coughing violently, unable to tell if I was laughing or crying. Either way, I felt such pain. My head hurt so badly it felt like it would split open, and I lost consciousness again. Jacob said urgently, "Miss Clark can't take any more. She's unconscious again. If she dreams again, this could cause irreversible damage to her brain." "Then should we wake her up quickly?" Harper said, wiping her tears. Ezra also stepped forward. Only Isaac frowned and snapped, "We still don't know where Liliana went. We have to find her. I need to re-educate her and make her correct her mistakes." Harper and Ezra both fell silent. Jacob also remained quiet. Isaac commanded, "Continue extracting her memories. You've already extracted her memories 3 times anyway, one more won't make a difference." Jacob said, "But," Isaac said coldly, "That's an order." Jacob could only respond, "Yes, sir." Chapter 6. Isaac, Harper, and Ezra put their helmets back on and continued extracting my memories. I heard many voices in my drowsy state. They were mocking me. Bunny lady, by her hair, across the ground she's dragged. Bunny lady, soft and fair, each night she's racked. My head ached terribly, and my scalp burned with pain. My dreams finally stabilized, revealing a vast cornfield before my eyes. My childhood self was running frantically along the ridge between fields. My clothes and pants had long been torn to shreds, leaving me nearly naked. I kept running, charging into the cornfield, causing many villagers to gather and stare in shock. Then my adoptive father David Sanders burst out of the cornfield and grabbed me. He said, "Why are you running? I was sewing clothes for you. Come home with me right now." David dragged me back home. I bit his hand and struggled desperately. David felt the pain and flew into a rage, slapping me unconscious. I no longer had the strength to resist as he grabbed my hair and dragged me all the way home. Along the way, many villagers gossiped, and some wore strange smiles. Back home, my adoptive mother Lydia Sanders immediately locked the door and scolded David for being too rough. David snapped, "Get lost. You stinking old hag, don't get in my way." Then he dragged me into the room. His mother Aaliyah Sanders sat on a filthy stool, head hanging low, looking as good as dead. And so, Christmas, an innocent young girl, found herself with her throat gripped tight by hands transformed from the mountains themselves. Day after day, year after year, this girl endured it all. Those dark, putrid, fishy and scorching memories, along with countless horrific experiences, suddenly crashed down on me all at once. Every time I tried to escape, I'd always be caught and dragged home by my hair. My hair would stick up high, like rabbit ears. And so I became the bunny lady. They mocked. Bunny lady, by her hair, across the ground she's dragged. Bunny lady, soft and fair, each night she's racked. What a perfect rhyme. Chapter 7. Damn it. A furious roar reached my ears. But I couldn't wake up. I was trapped in terrifying darkness, enduring torment day and night. Ezra threw off his helmet, his eyes bloodshot, staring at me in disbelief. Isaac and Harper stood up too, exchanging shocked glances, their expressions twisted with horror. Harper's voice trembled as she cried, "Wasn't Scarlett's adoptive father supposed to be an honest farmer? How could he?" Isaac's eyes gradually reddened. Without saying a word, he put his helmet back on. I was still trapped in the nightmare. My memories were murky, like the overflowing river in the village. The river always flooded, just like the suffering that was everywhere. Finally, when the river flooded once again, my biological family found me. The town leaders came in person, along with people from charity organizations. I could finally go home. David and Lydia were both shocked and frightened, but they also harbored malicious thoughts. They pinned me down in the cattle shed. David pressed a knife against my heart and said viciously, "Listen carefully, you little bitch. Your biological parents are famous and wealthy. What they fear most is losing face. If you tell them what happened in our house, they'll be completely humiliated and won't want you anymore. Then you'll have to come back here." I'd have to come back? I started trembling, shaking with my eyes closed. David smiled and tore open my clothes with one swift motion. "I'm delighted to see you scared. If you don't obey, we'll die together. I'm not afraid of going to prison. Even if I die, I'll expose everything about you." I cried, "Please don't." I didn't want Isaac, Harper, and Ezra to know I was the bunny lady. Seeing that I had submitted, David put away the knife and began writhing on top of me like a maggot. Chapter 8. On the day I went home, I quickly got into the car, not wanting to linger for even a moment. In the car, I felt Isaac's, Harper's, and Ezra's joy and the warmth of everyone around me, and tears suddenly streamed down my face. I had been given a new life. I suddenly found the courage to tell my real family what I had endured. I knew David was trying to intimidate me because he was more afraid than I was. So I should be braver than him. But when that courage reached my throat, I lost control of my bladder. My joy vanished instantly, leaving only humiliation. I went home like that and began enduring 3 long Christmases of torment. During this time, I felt Isaac's, Harper's, and Ezra's coldness and disgust over and over again, along with Liliana's bullying, until I could no longer muster even a shred of courage. Yes, what right did someone as unlikable as me have to be brave? I had left the village, yet I was still living in a nightmare. David often came to the city to find me. At first, he was cautious. Later, he became bolder and bolder. He not only wanted me to keep him company but also demanded money from me. Otherwise, he would tell everyone about the bunny lady incident. David said, "Think about it yourself. The Clark family is such a prominent family. If they lose face because of you, would your parents and brother still be able to show their faces in public? If you really care about them, just obey me. I promise I won't tell anyone about this. I gave in. I didn't want to lose face, and I didn't want Isaac, Harper, and Ezra to lose face either. I was like a drowning person being held underwater by a large hand. When I obeyed, the hand would loosen slightly. When I disobeyed, the hand would push me further down. I was sorry to myself and sorry to all the suffering I had endured. I was a coward. I hadn't read many books, no one had taught me how to conduct myself in the world, and no one had taught me to be brave. I was just a pitiful bunny lady. I had returned to a palace-like home, so I thought I had reached heaven, thought I had found redemption. But I never expected that there would still be demons here. I had to be tormented by demons while desperately trying to earn money, then use that money to appease another demon. How pathetic I was. So I began to cry. I wailed loudly, crying with such heartbreak. For some reason, I also heard someone else crying. That crying sounded like Harper's. She seemed even more devastated than me, lying on my legs and sobbing, "Jacob, turn off the machine." My daughter. My poor daughter. I felt my thighs getting wet. I thought, did I lose control again? No, probably not. If I had lost control, Harper wouldn't be lying on my legs crying, she would have recoiled in disgust. So it must be Harper's tears soaking my pants, right? It turned out she would shed so many tears for me. I thought only Liliana could make her cry. My consciousness was becoming increasingly blurred. I heard Ezra's voice again. He was almost breaking down, calling my name over and then making a phone call. Ezra roared, "Send someone to Oxheart Village and kill David and his family." His roar echoed through the laboratory. He had never been this angry before. The machine finally stopped, and my head finally didn't hurt so much. But my consciousness completely faded. In the darkness, I began forgetting many things, including Oxheart Village, the cornfield, the barn, the Clark family, the Maybach, the mansion, Liliana. Who was I? Chapter 9. When I woke up again, I was lying on a warm bed. This left me feeling confused because I couldn't remember who I was. Who am I? I seemed to be a girl from the village who spent her days playing happily, chasing rabbits, herding dogs, or catching fish in the river. And then I couldn't remember anything else, only those joyful childhood days. I sat up, scratching my head in confusion, wondering, where is this? Before I could think much more, the door was pushed open. A haggard, pale-faced Harper rushed in. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears. She cried so heartbreakingly, pulling me into her arms, her body trembling uncontrollably. I sat there in a daze, asking cautiously, "Who are you?" Her body shuddered, and she looked at me in panic. "Scarlett, I'm your mother." I smiled awkwardly and said, "You probably aren't my mother, right? I have no memory of you at all." "How is that possible?" Harper's eyes were filled with shock. She muttered to herself in despair, "No, Jacob was talking nonsense. You can't have amnesia." Her emotions completely spiraled out of control, and she cried until her voice was hoarse. At that moment, Isaac and Ezra rushed in, but I didn't recognize them either. Ezra should have been a proud, cold person, but right now, he was like an emotionally unhinged child. "Scarlett, you're awake? Let me take a look." He pulled Harper aside, insisting on hugging me. I resisted, scooting backward. "Who are you? Please don't hug me randomly, okay?" He froze in place, as if struck by lightning, his body swaying. Isaac also froze, his voice trembling as he said, "Has she really lost her memory? Why is heaven punishing me like this? This is my daughter, my only daughter. I haven't had the chance to make amends yet." He actually started crying too. I'd never seen a middle-aged man cry so hard. It was quite interesting, but I felt a bit disgusted. No matter who they were, I found their crying revolting. How strange. Why would I find them disgusting? After all, they were clearly crying so miserably. I couldn't figure it out. Isaac called someone while crying, saying, "Jacob, my daughter really has amnesia. You must find a way to make her remember us. She's my only daughter." Jacob's voice came through the phone. "Mr. Isaac Clark, I already warned you when extracting the memories. 3 times was already the limit. There's nothing I can do." Useless. Isaac smashed his phone directly, then walked to the bedside, looking at me and saying, "Scarlett, I'm your father. Touch my face. You'll definitely remember me." I felt so disgusted that I shook my head vigorously, not wanting to touch him. Seeing this scene, Harper's tears seemed to dry up, and she nearly collapsed to the ground. Ezra stood there in a daze. With each breath, he had to clutch his chest forcefully, as if his heart was in great pain. I thought they were very strange. Fortunately, a nanny rushed in hurriedly, saying, "Mr. Isaac Clarke, Ms. Liliana Clarke has returned." Chapter 11. I eventually left Clarke Villa after all. They gave me a large sum of money and arranged bodyguards to protect me. But I found it too troublesome, so I secretly slipped away. I wandered around, staying in this city for a while, then moving to another. I thought the world was beautiful, with different scenery everywhere. In short, anywhere was fine as long as it wasn't Clarke Villa. I had a cheerful and optimistic personality, loved to laugh, and loved to eat. I felt my past experiences must have been wonderful. After all, in my memories, those scenes of catching fish and shrimp were crystal clear. Those scenes were so beautiful. But why did I hate the Clarke family so much? It wasn't until 3 Christmases later, when I saw vast cornfields in a tourist village. Suddenly, sharp pain shot through my brain, and cold sweat broke out all over my body. I stared blankly at the cornfields as countless memories stirred up my mind like giant hands. Bunny lady, by her hair, across the ground she's dragged. Scarlett, did you wet your pants? Scarlett, can't you be normal? Why don't you learn from Liliana? I'm asking you one last time. Where exactly did Liliana go? My head hurt so much. Chapter 12. I was unconscious for 3 days and finally woke up in the hospital. I sat there in a daze for a long time, then looked out the window. There were no more cornfields outside, only goji berry flowers. The goji berry flowers bloomed brilliantly, vibrant and blazing, probably just like Liliana's life. What about my life then? My life was bitter. I shook my head and went through the discharge procedures. Afterward, I boarded a plane and returned to the city where the Clarke family lived. 3 years later, I was back here again. I couldn't describe what I was feeling. I just wandered aimlessly until I reached that familiar mansion. The mansion was overgrown with weeds, and the bricks and tiles were weathered and crumbling. Clearly, no one had lived there for a long time. I walked around the mansion and unexpectedly ran into Andrew Kim, the butler from another mansion nearby. He used to be the Clarke family's butler but now worked for someone else. After some conversation, I learned what had happened to the Clarke family. After I left, Ezra's mental state gradually deteriorated. He developed self-harming tendencies and would often cry and wail in the middle of the night, like a ghost. Just a month later, he went to Oxheart village alone and killed David with an axe, along with David's other family members. This incident caused a huge uproar, and the Clarke family was caught in a whirlwind of public opinion, facing enormous pressure. I was somewhat shocked. I hadn't expected Ezra to actually kill David and his family, nor that he would completely disregard the consequences. Andrew sighed. Actually, it would have been best to resolve this matter through legal means. But Mr. Ezra refused and insisted on handling it personally. At first, Mr. Isaac could still control him. Later, he went a bit mad, and even Mr. Isaac couldn't restrain him anymore. I could imagine Ezra's fate. He had traded his own life for David's and his family's lives. I remained silent, saying nothing. Andrew then brought up what happened to Isaac and Harper. He wiped away tears and said, Mr. Isaac and Ms. Harper couldn't withstand the pressure from the corporation and were stripped of their power. Moreover, Mr. Isaac was sentenced to death. Their lives have been truly tumultuous. They fell from great heights and are now just 2 people depending on each other. Although they don't lack food or clothing, there's no meaning left in their lives. Then, he kindly gave me an address. They're living here now. This is their old house from many years ago, back when you hadn't gone missing yet. I pocketed the address. In the evening, I stood in front of that old house. It was a house in the old district, very run down, probably about to be demolished. The house was dark inside, without even the lights on. I peered through the window and vaguely saw 2 elderly people sitting quietly on a wooden sofa. In just 3 years, this middle-aged couple had become white-haired old people. A gust of wind blew, and sand got in my eyes. I raised my hand to rub my eyes, but my hand touched the window, making a noise. They finally moved. Harper asked in a hoarse, aged voice, "Who's there?" I didn't answer. As if sensing something, Harper suddenly stood up excitedly. "Is that Scarlett?" "Isaac, hurry and open the door." When Scarlett was little, she loved to hide outside the window and tease us. Isaac's body was already failing. He was clearly a middle-aged man, but he walked unsteadily. He tried to run over and open the door but fell down instead. I turned and left. At the crossroads, I hid in the crowd and looked back to see that the door of the old house had opened. Two hunched elderly people stood at the doorway, looking around and calling out something. Unfortunately, there was nothing anymore. They coughed, wiped their tears, and after a long while, silently walked back inside. I left too. My heart felt incredibly light, as if I had untangled all my worries. My life was still beautiful. Humming a tune, I went and cut my long hair short, looking cool and carefree. No one could grab my hair like rabbit ears anymore. Looking in the mirror, I thought I looked really cool. I thought to myself, I'm ready to set off. The end. And that's a wrap on today's reading here at Booked for Drama. If you felt anything, rage, swoon, secondhand heartbreak, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow drama lovers. If you have any requests, drop them in the comments. Until next time, keep reading, and keep the drama on the page.